Sage,
Yeah.
I've sacrificed everything. What have you given?
About 350 monthly subscriptions, hours upon hours of my life, you know, the huge.
I'm Rage.
I'm Sage.
And today we're going to be talking about Illidan Stormrage. You may love him, you may hate him, you may think he's an edgelord to the extreme. Whatever your opinions are, in this last chapter of Legion, he has had an influence on the way other lore characters think in shaping kind of their worldviews and how they go about seeing the world.
Yeah, love him or hate him, he has been a pivotal character for Legion, you know, big name, big actions, and big impact.
You know, like first appearing again in person and, toasting Gul'dan and crushing his skull.
Yeah, that was a thing that happened.
So what we're going to do today in this video is we're going to play some clips right at the end of Legion here, at the kind of Argus campaign and forward, and talk about the impact of what Illidan says and how that could impact some of our characters going forward. And also maybe kind of us as the player as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of dynamics to Illidan's story and kind of where he's been, where we're going, and how he plays into it all.
So, with that being said, we're going to play our first clip from Illidan's kind of first major conversation of influence with Velen. And so I'm going to go ahead and play that clip now for a little.
Your faith has always been your weakness. When your closest allies fell to darkness, you didn't stop them. When the Legion swept over your world and took your people, you didn't make a stand. All you did was watch, convinced you were following the Light's will. The truth is, you failed your people. Their blood is on your hands. You will never understand what I did to save my people. The Light is holding you back.
So we see in this clip, Illidan he's kind of being a jerk, to put it even mildly. That's an understatement, with how he's handling Velen. And he's bringing up, when your people this, when your people was that, you sat back, you let it happen, you ran away, this happened, and their blood is on your hands. And although it might seem like a jerk move on Illidan's part, Illidan knows firsthand what it is like to have people's blood on his hands. As we found out earlier in the game when we played through the storyline, Illidan sacrificed his own mages, his own arcanists, to fight back at Blackrook Hold and close one of the Legion portals. And while he was sacrificing them for their energy to have enough arcane power to shut the portal down, Illidan was like, forgive me. And he knew what he was doing, he knew that it was awful, and when it was all said and done, Jared Shadowsong kind of calls him out on it and says, what have you done, Illidan? All of our men are dead. And Illidan turns around and goes, I did what none of you could do to save our world at this moment. And he has a valid point. And he knew that the blood of the people that he was, the blood of on his hands from their lives was something that he was going to have to deal with. And I think maybe he's trying to make Velen see that point as well. Like, this is something you have to own and you have to deal with to push forward.
Yeah, Illidan is very much a proactive character.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of sees the world a bit differently, in that he kind of believes there's no bad tactics, only bad targets.
Yep. And he's willing to do what it takes to get the job done. Now, sometimes those actions are awful, bad targets, as Sage said. But he's making a point. And then he has this other line here with Velen. He says, the Light is holding you back. You need to forge your own path. And I think Illidan is talking to more than just Velen here. Granted, Velen is one who is the prophet. He's blindly followed the Light for a long time. And Illidan is trying to get him to wake up to the fact that you don't just blindly follow anything. You need to do what you think is best, and you need to forge your own path.
Yeah, you have to be proactive in where you're going, what you're doing. You can't just sit back and wait for the world to cater to you. You have to push forward and make it happen.
And he's trying to sell that to Velen. You've got to do this now. Stop blindly following. This is where we take action. This is where we go forward. So as jerky as this interaction is, and it's just mean-spirited as Illidan is here with that cocky smile that he's got on his face, he has some valid points about those who blindly follow the light. So I'm going to play another clip here, and that is from the cinematic rejection of the gift, and I'm going to go ahead and let that play, and we can see Illidan start to influence yet another character who kind of blindly follows the light, and that is Tyrande. So we'll go ahead and let that one play.
Destiny is mine! You've doomed us all, betrayer! Your faith has blinded you. There can be no chosen one. Only we can save ourselves.
So here we see Illidan just telling Zira to suck it in the end, basically, as he blows her up and says, "My fate is my own." And so he is living the words that he's preaching to Velen before we see this scene. Like, don't let somebody else, do it for you. Don't blindly follow anything. And Illidan refuses to blindly follow the light either. And he says, "My scars are me, and my path is my own." And then he blows up Zira. Now, a lot of people had a lot of negative reactions to this video on the internet, and I don't blame them. It seems like kind of a teenage temper tantrum, edgelordy thing for Illidan to do. But what he is doing right here is living true to the very words that he just attacked Velen with before. So he needs to live by what he says. Put your money where your mouth is, so to say.
Yeah, he tells Velen to forge his own path, and here we see him. He's not just going to put his faith in some mystical light chandelier from space. He is going to, he's going to take destiny by the reins and do it the way he's been doing it.
And after he attacks Zira, and Tyrande comes running forward, and he goes, "Betrayer, you have doomed us all!" Illidan catches the sword. We see the fell blood coming out of Illidan, and he looks at Tyrande and he says, "There can be no chosen one. Only we, plural, can save ourselves and Azeroth. We, not one person, not the light, not one viewpoint, not one thing, but we, plural, all of us together with all of our differences and viewpoints here."
Yeah, Illidan doesn't want us just to sit back and wait for destiny to take over. The only way that we could beat the Legion is by taking the fight to them. And instead of waiting for, Zera or the Light or any other force to take over, we're accountable for that.
And more importantly, Illidan is getting at the issue of fate. This subject is going to come up in our next video here. But he starts getting at the issue of fate and saying, you're not going to leave it to something else to tell you how it's going to roll out. You have your own free will. Exercise it.
Yeah.
And so, getting to that free will point and fate, I'm going to play the clip from the end of the Argus cinematic. So spoilers, if you haven't, seen that already or beaten Argus, skip forward or just watch it. It's not that huge of a spoiler. But we're going to see an interaction between Velen and Illidan again here as he's talking about Sargeras. So we're going to go ahead and play that clip.
Illidan, we've done all we can.
Every choice, every sacrifice has led me to this moment. To face him once again.
You are not coming with us.
The hunter is nothing without the hunt. Did you not see this fate, prophet?
Fate. Our survival was never in fate's hands. Light be with you, Illidan Stormrage.
So we see this interaction between Velen and Illidan, and they're talking about fate, and Velen finally gets it. Like, Illidan's influence has now come full circle on Velen, and Velen is like, fate had nothing to do with it. we did this.
We forged our own path here. Everything that's happened because they fought for it.
Exactly. They went in, they did the attack, they worked it all out. They, together, as a team, did that. And so it's a cool interaction between this person who follows the light and someone who is so tainted by darkness and horrible decisions that he's made in the past to get something done, Illidan, in this exchange. And then Illidan turns around towards Velen and says, all these things that I've been through, all these sacrifices, everything that I've done has led me to face him once again. And I love the ironic tone, maybe not even irony, but just the poetry of it all. When Illidan first loses his eyesight, Sargeras grants him that vision, and he burns his eyes out. And Illidan gets to see what no one else gets to see, and that's why Illidan is the betrayer. He wanted to get an edge on the enemy by trying to, join their forces and understand how they work. And so Illidan sees the vast numbers of the Burning Legion. He sees everything that the Legion is and how they are endless. And in that moment, Illidan realizes we're never going to beat them unless we beat them on their own turf, at their own game, and fight fire with fire. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do this. And we have to go to their home world to do it because they are so endless and so vast. And so that whole path of being the betrayer, starting back then all the way till now, has come full circle. And now here he is face to face with Sargeras again. But this time, instead of being powerless and having nothing that he can do, he has the Pantheon behind him. And you see him light up his warglaves ready to go. And you know that he's going to get his revenge. Now, Illidan doesn't die or peace out, so to say, the hero sacrifice.
No, he is not a hero even at the end. He is still very much in this for his own motives.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he has a heroic goal of taking out Sargeras doesn't necessarily make him a hero. And I really like pretty much his final line, one of his last lines to Velen, is, "The hunter is nothing without the hunt." And that actually goes back to Black Temple, where he looks at Maiev and says, "The huntress is nothing without the hunt. You are nothing without me." I think that Illidan realizes that of himself. He is nothing without Sargeras.
Mm-hmm. And so that goes full circle again. And we saw kind of how empty of a hate-filled shell Maiev has been since her whole purpose of capturing Illidan was completed. And Illidan doesn't want to be without purpose. That's what it's all been about. So even this last action that seems maybe heroic, maybe not, it is selfish. It's his goal, it's what he wants, and he's an anti-hero. He's not painted in some holy Tyrellian light, so to say. He's just doing what he wants to do and what he's always wanted to do. And then his final words are, "It's never been in fate's hands." Once again, going back to that point that you as the player and all of these lore characters need to choose your own paths.
Well, it even goes into, Illidan's not okay with just sitting by and letting the Pantheon deal with Sargeras. He is up there himself to end this.
I do like that point, that he's not going to leave it even in somebody else's hands, even though he could, because Velen's like, "Hey, it's time to go," and Illidan's like, "Nope. I'm finishing this. I started this. I've done all these awful things to get here. I'm going to make all those awful things have some type of meaning." So what we're going to do now is move forward to the quest where you turn in the little shards to Malfurion and Tyrande and see their interactions there and Illidan's final words to those guys. So we're going to start with Malfurion, and I'm going to go ahead and play that clip.
You never trusted my intentions, though I suppose I did not make it easy for you. But now, as my fate becomes clear, I wish to quiet the strife that has long divided us. Even when the Legion is gone, new threats will arise. There is no one I trust to face them more than you, brother. You have spent a lifetime fighting for the dream of what Azeroth could be. Now you must fight for what it is.
Illidan has some very good words here for Malfurion, and Illidan kind of owns up to his past. We see him, I took a path that was not easy for you to trust me on. And that's an understatement from Illidan. Illidan, you did awful things.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to Burning Crusades, for example. creating fell orcs, draining Zangarmarsh, ripping apart the Nether Spite?
The Nether Storm.
Nether Storm. I mean, he ruined Outlands for his goal to bring down the Legion.
And in that, he almost became the very thing he hated. Sargeras is this lord of the Legion and all these demons, and Illidan filled a once holy site, the Karabar Temple, I probably pronounced that wrong, I apologize if I did, and turned it into the Black Temple, full of demons underneath his own service, training demon hunters that are more demon than hunter anymore. And he's become the very thing he hates, all for the goal of defeating the thing he hates. So when he says to Malfurion, I've done some things to make you not trust me, I feel like he's trying to own up to some of the awful things he's done, but failing miserably at reaching that point of understanding. But he does know himself and does know what he did. And then he says to Malfurion, I always fought for what Azeroth could be, and now you have to fight for what it is. And I think there's some foreshadowing there, that it's still a broken world.
Yeah, it's no longer about the Emerald Dream for Malf at this point. I think it's time for you to step up and take control of the destiny of this world.
And then his last final line to his brother is, always let people remember the name Stormrage. I think Illidan is very clearly making it clear to us that the Blizzard Warcraft development team is not going to bring this character back.
No, I don't expect to see Illidan again, at least not for a very long time.
I agree, very long, because he says, the name is all yours, brother. Like, you have to make our name great. I almost ruined it. I pretty much did ruin it. Now I'm gone, and it's kind of like a farewell to say, you're the only one now.
Yeah.
And he says that he trusts his brother, which is awesome, because those two have gone back and forth and fought since they were siblings all the way up, and they've always had tension, but he says he trusts his brother and wants him to hold that name. The next clip we're going to get to here is when you turn in the little crystal to Tyrande, and you see Illidan's last words to her. I'm going to play some that kind of stand out here.
And like my brother, you came to believe that the choices I made had driven me to darkness. Know that every path I took led toward a single purpose, saving our world. I could abide no half measures, no compromise.
So in this final speech to Tyrande, Illidan makes a lot of points about why he did what he did and how Tyrande was his anchor, his reason for always pushing forward, because in her he saw what Azeroth's beauty could be, so to say. It was very poetic for him to say to her. And her reaction is, those are good words, but can I trust them? You know? And rightly so. But he gets to this point in there where he says, what I did, and I did it without compromise. There could be no compromise. It had to be an ultimate goal with ultimate prices to be paid, and I was willing to pay them.
Yeah, Illidan knew what he had to do from the start. He knew that the end justifies the means, and he was going to have to pretty much do some awful things to get there. But he also realizes that those actions come with consequences.
Yeah, I don't think in any way, shape, or form in all these discussions that he has with these people at the end of the game and us as the players, we get here to the last clip, he doesn't have any delusions of grandeur about what he's done.
Yeah, he fully accepts that, he has broken worlds, broken people even, and there's no going back on that.
No, not in the least. But he keeps looking forward, and he wants those that he loves to look forward to, is what I'm gathering from the last things. Again, another important message to these characters. And so now we get to the last little piece where we go up to Mount Hyjal. When we turn in both shards to Malfurion and Tyrande, we find out, hey, we've got one more thing. Illidan wants us to take the last piece up to Mount Hyjal, so I'm going to go ahead and play that one.
Your dedication, your sacrifice, rivals my own. But more will be asked of you. So much more. Even now, enemies gather, and the shadows grow darker.
And in this final clip, we get Illidan telling us, the hero, that, I don't know if I really agree with him that we've sacrificed as much as he has. That whole Demon Hunter line, I've sacrificed everything, is so overplayed this expansion.
It's everywhere.
And if you played a Demon Hunter, you went insane with it in the class hall, because every NPC that you talk to, I'm sure all of you feel this way no matter what class you played. But he talks about how much he sacrificed and how much you, the player, has sacrificed in your character. You're a great hero of Azeroth. But then he gives us some foreshadowing. He says, even now, more enemies close in on Azeroth, and shadows grow darker. We're talking about someone who we mentioned earlier when he got his vision from Sargeras. He could see the entire Burning Legion and all that they were, which I would speculate means he saw all the different places they were, all the different forces that the Legion was fighting and holding back, whether it be Void Lords or other things out there in, the great beyond. And Illidan knows what those forces are. And now without the Legion, we pulled kind of a plug that says, worse things are coming. And Illidan is telling you, the hero, there are worse things coming. And I think this is some foreshadowing to go into our next expansion that pushes us beyond just the battle between Horde and Alliance, but as a reminder that there are forces out there that want Azeroth done and dead.
Yeah, if you look at it, the Burning Legion itself is kind of like almost the big bad of the universe. And when they're gone, it's going to create a power vacuum. We don't know how many threats the Legion actually kept suppressed, because they were on hundreds, maybe even thousands of worlds, and we don't know exactly how far Legion went. They weren't just focused on Azeroth.
No, and we as the players got to experience that a little bit with the invasion point system that they built into the game here at the end, where we would go to smaller worlds, so to say, quote unquote. You go in there, and the Legion would be on other planets, fighting to take those over and interacting with things. On one of them, Invasion Point Sangua, we see them draining blood out of the planet, and there's these tendrils that come up and attack us and the Legion while we're in that invasion point. And so, what is that? How many different threats were the Legion fighting as well that are also a threat to us? Enemy of my enemy, in this case, is definitely not Azeroth's friend. And Illidan gives us warning to that. So what is his role here? How does Illidan impact the storyline going forward? Well, we see that he looks at two huge leaders of the light, Velen and Tyrande, and kind of makes them both realize, do not blindly follow one side or the other. It is not good. The people that he doesn't interact with, though, are people like Anduin and Gen Greymane.
And Sylvanas.
And we don't see the Horde up on Argus much either. And I think that was kind of bad writing on Blizzard's part to have no Horde ambassadors up there. It was basically the Alliance free-for-all show.
Should have had, Lothramar.
Yeah.
Would have been a perfect fit.
Exactly. Somebody. But he didn't get to have this impact on some of our leaders that are leading the fight in the battle for Azeroth. And I think the impact is still huge. You need to make your own fate. You need to make your own choices. You need to own your mistakes, and you need to move forward and plan accordingly. And whatever your goal is, if it's truly your goal, sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed to get there, and realize what you've done and that you can do it. And I think that's a great message for us as players as well. I'm not trying to be sappy here, but I think there's a message there for us as people to go, don't blindly follow anything in your life. Do what you think is best and move forward. And if you've done wrong, accept that you screwed up and make that sacrifice worth something.
And if you have a goal, you got to go out and fight for it. You can't expect it to just fall in your lap.
Hopefully, some of our other heroes in Battle for Azeroth will have learned from Illidan the good things, not the edgelordiness, but the good things. And maybe that can be an influence on some of our characters moving forward, and as us as heroes of Azeroth going forward as well. If you like this content, hit like and subscribe. Please do share with a friend at some point. We really appreciate all the support the channel's gotten. That's why we wanted to do this piece on Illidan. And if you're not an Illidan fan club person and you just hate him, that's okay. You can leave a comment down below saying how much you dislike it. If you do like Illidan, or maybe this was a new way for you to look at Illidan as he left us in lore in the game, go ahead and leave a comment down below as well.
We'd love to hear from you. Peace, people.